Good evening, everybody, or whatever time it is, wherever you are. Now, I've been thinking a little bit about the idea of what's going on when people get voices in their head. I've had voices in my head on and off throughout my life since about the age of 13. That's actually when my condition first started. But I won't start with that. I'm more interested in a theory I have about this, and it's pretty out there, and I'm not to say that this is even true. It's really just a concept. But it's something that perhaps people could build upon as an idea of what might these voices be. Now, I have read some basic literature before on what people in the medical field say the voices might be. But from my own experience, and through using LSD and delving into my own mind, and you'll see this in one of my other videos where I talk about when I took 300 micrograms when I had voices, about that experience and what had happened. But through my own analysis, my own thought, contemplation really about this for some time, I have a somewhat strange idea on this. So basically, I've looked at these voices and thought, well, they aren't my voice at all. They don't sound like me. In fact, I've heard female voices before, and they're clearly not mine. Now, I know some people could say, well, it might be just manifested in your mind, and that could be true. But I'm going to put this theory out there now. And the idea is that if you look at the body, as we know, has an immune system. Now, if you think about the brain as potentially having its own immune system, now this is not based on any kind of science or anything like that, but if you just imagine it having its own separate immune system, and that immune system is weakened. Now, with our bodies, when we have a weakened immune system, we have germs and things like that get into our system and make us sick. Now, the idea that having a weakened immune system around the brain is that, now one for a better word, I'm not a religious person, but let's just call it spirits, something that's out there, whatever it might be. You can call it, evil atoms, whatever, it doesn't really matter. The concept here is what I'm trying to get across, is that there seems to be some other kind of maybe consciousness that perhaps is out somewhere, wherever that may be, outside of ourselves, that is sort of attacking the weakened immune system around these brains, including my own. Now, I know that a lot of people do develop different mental conditions as a part of trauma, and perhaps biological things could be wrong with their brain too. Now, in my view, that doesn't really matter. That's something that what we sort of maybe can identify primarily through our science. But I'm looking at something much bigger than that and beyond that even. That just seems to be perhaps, a symptom of it all, or a cause, whichever way you want to look at it really. But the thing is, this idea of something else, let's call it some sort of entity, trying to inhabit the human brain, and it looks for weakened ones. So, these voices aren't particularly nice either. I have found. I've never heard them say a nice thing or be helpful whatsoever. In fact, they're almost maddening, and I'm sure that has happened to some people. So then you sort of would be thinking, then what is the point of these things? What are they trying to do? And that I wouldn't know, to be honest. You could guess at what that might be. As I said, this is just a concept out there at this stage. It's just a theory. It's a very sketchy one. It's very shaky, and I'm not saying it's like this at all. It really is a discussion point as, could there be something like this going on? I don't know. I'm not saying I'm right, and I'm not saying I'm wrong. But through analysis of it, it's just the voices themselves. I think they really are very different and individual, and I do feel very separate to them when I have had them. And the fact that they are quite negative and destructive, makes me think that perhaps that is the point, is that they want to try and destroy you for whatever reason. A bit like a germ or something like that might get onto a host and eat away at it until it deteriorates. Although that's not always ideal, because that entity or whatever it might be, it needs the host to survive. But perhaps that's not the point either. Perhaps they don't want you to survive. I don't know. This is really quite an out there theory. I'd be very interested to hear in the comment section though other people's theory on this, and not based on even my own theory, but their own theories perhaps they've got their own ideas on what these voices might be. And I said, I know we understand it in a certain perspective to some degree through science, but I've been actually doing a course at the moment through the University of Tasmania to do with dementia. And I've been learning a tremendous amount about the brain, which has sort of given me some more clarity about how the brain works. And one of the things which I found particularly interesting was how in the brain we have the electrical signals, and then there's a break between, say, what's called the axon to, I think it's the dendrites from recollection, where there's this area what they call the neurotransmitter. So basically what happens is there's an electrical signal that comes down the axon, and then the dendrites receive that, and then they convert that into a chemical signal. So between this little space of these two things where the neurotransmitter is, it made me think, well, perhaps that's the area in which these things get in, if it is anything at all. I mean, I could be completely wrong, mind you. But if so, I mean, perhaps that's the break point when they get in. I don't know. It's just, I said, I'm just putting this out there as some sort of theory, and who knows, somebody might hear what I'm saying and think, well, that sounds pretty ridiculous, but there might be something in that sort of idea of maybe even, I don't know, how various mental things happen, and maybe, who knows, it might come to another way of sort of treatment. I don't know. Nonetheless, I think it's an interesting point of view, and I would be interested in hearing what people have to say about it. And I prefer no insults. As I said, I'm not putting this forward as any kind of thing that has any kind of validity to it whatsoever. Nonetheless, it is a discussion point, and I'm interested in ideas. And as I said, I'm very into philosophy and also looking into the psychology of myself and even my own mental condition, and also psychedelics. I mean, that whole experience is a whole other thing in itself. It's absolutely fascinating what's going on with psychedelics, and that's something I'm always interested to discuss with people. But I'm going to leave this here. It's a very short video, but it's just something I wanted to get off my mind to share with others. And hopefully I'm not going to get a backlash of criticism and insults, because if I do, look, I'm happy for open discussion, and you can disagree with me as much as you like, but keep it civil is all I ask. So I'm going to leave that here, and I look forward to any kind of responses I might get.